All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. And we're going to probably start right on time tonight because we're going to keep this a tight hour. So I'm just going to jump right in and start off by saying my name is Ellen Mueller. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am the director of the MFA program at Minneapolis College of Art and Design. So welcome to our Summer Furniture and Social Practice Conference. We're really excited that you could be here with us. I'm going to start out with a visual description of myself in case we have anyone with low vision participating tonight. I am a late 30s white woman with brown hair, brown eyes. I'm sitting in a studio office space and I have a sort of a purple tank top on. And before we leap into our programming tonight, I want to start off with a land acknowledgement to respectfully acknowledge that the land we are occupying in Minneapolis is unceded territory, the ancestral homelands of the Dakota and the Anishinaabe peoples. And gathering here, we pay our respects to those elders, both past and present. We acknowledge the grave harm that colonialism has brought to these lands, in particular, the erasure of both Indigenous and African identities, not only under slavery, but also via racist laws that do and continue to segregate all people. We honor those who have lived and do live now at the intersection of identity and experience. And if you're curious about land acknowledgements, feel free to screenshot this slide. There's some really great resources on there. For one, finding out what land you are on, and two, how to put together a land acknowledgement of your own. So feel free to check that out. Also, I would be amiss if I didn't mention that the MCAD MFA program is sponsoring tonight. So if you are curious about us, we are a community of makers, thinkers, researchers, and creative professionals working in a mentor-based, interdisciplinary environment. And you can learn more at the website listed on screen. So a couple tech details for the evening. Your audio will be muted. And if you have any tech problems, feel free to shoot us an email at the email listed on screen. That's av_support@mcad.edu. And please feel free to leave questions in the chat. We'll select from those, not only after the speakers are done speaking, but also if there's a good one as we go along, we'll pause and interject and add those in there. So feel free to participate actively. Also, a recording of this webinar will be made available afterwards, so keep your eyes out for that. And then I have to say thank you to a whole bunch of people because this would not be possible today without the help of so many. First and foremost, Erin Morin, co-conference organizer. Thank you, Erin, so much. And then also we've got amazing staff here at MCAD who have helped us along every step of the way. We've got Seth Dahlside, Kylie Van Note, and Nikki Motocolum. And tonight we're lucky enough to be joined by Pearl Davis, who is our amazing technical support. So thank you, thank you. And then also, we are able to pay all of our speakers this year thanks to incredible sponsorship. We have the American Craft Council, my God, I did it again. The American Craft Council, Rockler, the Furniture Society, Tandem Made, special shout out to Tandem Made, that's Erin Morin's amazing company, Ripon and Blue Dot have all contributed to make this conference possible. So many thanks to them. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our amazing speakers. This evening, we are joined by Teresa Audet, Sarah Marriage, Jess Hirsch, and Dennis Walsh. Each one will be giving about a 3 to 5 minute presentation. So audience members will get a sense of each panelist's background and their work, and then we'll move on into prepared questions for this panel. And like I said, feel free to fill the chat. I'll keep a really close eye on that as we go along. So this can be even more participatory. So with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing and we'll move along in the order of the photos. So Teresa, if it's okay with you, I'm going to throw it to you first. So I'm going to stop. And then feel free to go for it.
All right, sounds good. There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa Audet, and I use she, her pronouns. And a visual description of me, I have white skin and red hair. I'm wearing a black dress with little flowers on it, and I'm sitting in a tall wingback red chair. So a little bit of background about me. I received my BFA from the Minneapolis College of Art and Design in 2011. I'm sort of from Minneapolis, and I'm currently living in Madison, Wisconsin. And this is an image of an exhibition I had at a place called Squirrel House Arts in Minneapolis a couple years ago. And actually this was the body of work that I used to apply to graduate school with. So, and so after I graduated, I started a business right away, and I spent a long time making custom furniture and doing commission projects. I have done some larger scale projects, like made a bunch of tabletops for a restaurant in Northeast Minneapolis. I can't remember the name of it right now, but you know, had done some other things, and over the years I've slowly kind of moved towards smaller pieces. Now I kind of only do maybe one commission project a year, and it's something that I really get to have more creative control over. And I do a lot of the smaller kind of craft council sales and things like that, where I sell my cutting boards and spoons and different kind of kitchenwares. And I also sell that online on my website. And then another aspect of my profession, or my career, I guess, is teaching. And that's been, you know, a huge thanks to Jess Hirsch, which we'll hear from, for starting an inclusive wood shop and giving me the opportunity to start teaching. I had taught a few classes early on, and really was convinced I was a horrible teacher until Jess really reached out and helped foster my teaching practice. And I also wanted to shout out to Annie Evelyn, who I know you had on yesterday, and that bottom left image of the 3 people on furniture is I was the studio assistant for her 8-week class at Penland. So that's been really great, being able to go to different craft schools and teach kind of in community shops and different methods like that. And I just started graduate school about a year ago. I just finished my first year, and I'm sort of in both the sculpture and the woodworking program. And this was one of the very first project I did, and I thought I would share it because I thought it was kind of relevant to what we're talking about today, inclusion, and how do we make better spaces for everybody. And this was a project where I wanted to make a series of tables with the theme of cow to welcome myself to Wisconsin. And they were all made within a 6-hour period, and with one piece of 2x4, one 8-foot piece of 2x4. And then the last slide here is just some of my newest work, which is kind of what I've been doing since I'm in grad school. I've been exploring social practice and performance art. So the image in the middle is I did a 3-hour performance where I just took my hand plane and very, very slowly, synced with my breath, hand planed the edge of a piece of mahogany for 3 hours. And the other 2 are these sort of basket weaving, fiber, weird, wearable objects. So yeah, excited to talk more. That's it for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's go with Sarah next, if that's okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Marriage, and I'm currently she, her pronouns, currently located in Baltimore, Maryland. A visual description of me is I'm an early 40s white woman with gray hair and blue eyes, and I'm sitting in a room with a painted plaid wall behind me. Let's see, let me just share my slideshow and get going. Okay, I'm gonna do this awkward thing for a second where I just read this text because I don't know how to do this the sort of crafty way. But so this is a photo of a quote from Hebrew scripture that's at the start of one of Krenov's books, James Krenov, the furniture maker. And I'll just start reading that 3rd paragraph. We live in an unstable, well, so the quote is, "But they, craftspeople, keep stable the fabric of the world, and their prayer is in the practice of their trade." We live in an unstable time, and I think it's the responsibility of each of us and all of us together to work towards stabilizing the fabric of our world. And it's important to remember that stability is not the same word as regression, not the same as stagnation. Craftspeople explore boundaries, we create tools, we invent processes, and we build and bridge communities. My current work is both a social practice and an artistic practice, so let's start from the beginning. And I'm going to try to do this in less than 5 minutes. From the beginning, here we go. So that's me in a rocking chair that my uncle made. And this is my friend's kid, Gigi. One thing that I love about furniture is the way that it connects us to other people, and how something like this item that I grew up with can be in the home of a friend now. This is the first piece of woodworking I ever purchased. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and this is a carving by an Inuit man named Thomas, and it's a loom with a human face on it. This I keep in my studio space to sort of, again, connect me to other people and other thoughts and ideas. And moving on, this is one of the first pieces of furniture I ever made before I knew how to make furniture, and I was just trying to make things in my world. It's a record player holder thing. So I started out in architecture school, and I dropped out and then jumped around to a bunch of different places. I was a dog walker, did a lot of different things, and I ended up working for Guy Nordenson and Associates, which is a structural engineering firm in Manhattan. And this was the first project I worked on as a draftsperson, and later I became a project manager, but this is mostly just drafting work. This is the new Museum for Contemporary Art in New York. This is called the Asian Culture Complex. It's in Gwangju, South Korea. The slurry wall at the World Trade Center Memorial. So just to say a little bit about that, my experience in structural engineering was probably my largest body of like design education that I can say I received. And I worked at that firm, small firm of about between 10 and 15 people when I was there, for 5 or 6 years. And so being able to sort of touch these amazing projects and learn about the structure of these buildings and the importance of them and the way they affect, like, not just the content, but the structures themselves, how they affect everyone's lives that inhabit them and walk through them, was a really amazing thing for me to be able to experience. I left architecture school because I wanted to make furniture, though. And eventually I left this job because I wanted to make furniture. I always wanted to design and build. So I went to the College of the Redwoods. This is some madrone. Madrone is a tree native to Europe and the Pacific Northwest America. There's a box that I made. Music stand, just give you a sense of like the stuff that I make. It's a Rolltop Desk. When I got out of school, I did a lot of work for the guys that I shared a wood shop with. So this is dovetails I cut for a maker called Thomas Hucker that I shared shop with. And so I would just get jobs doing sort of the finicky, fine woodworking stuff that other people didn't necessarily want to do. A bench that I made, this was like after school when I was working at trying to make a living. Me and my shop back then. And then I got really obsessed with like public furniture. So just started taking photos everywhere of public furniture. Again, this connection to like this fundamental way that furniture affects our lives. And public furniture in particular can connect to so many different people, and it changes the way we experience a space. This is a piece of furniture called the Kmart Cruiser by my friend Sean Maximo. For a visual description, it's two lawn chairs welded to rails facing it so that the lawn chairs are facing each other in a conversation chair style, and then welded to two pieces of metal wrapped in, what do you call it, foam noodles, creating a bit of a catamaran, and that's in Prospect Park in New York. We got caught and got kicked out. And then here's just another example of like lawn furniture, just inexpensive furniture, but the way it kind of, the way you arrange it can affect, you know, how people interact and change the use of the object depending on how you choose to use it. another piece of mine. This is called Faint. It's a coffee table. I was trying to make something that was sort of unexpected in shape, and the way sort of challenge the way you experience the object in space. I spent some time making rattles and children's toys and things to pay the rent. This is some of those. This is a friend of mine's kid with a rattle. I started to scale up and tried to make, or started to experiment with like sort of kids furniture and stuff. I did not end up making that. So this picture is me and a bunch of people from the Furniture Society that were in a book at the New York Design Center. And this is like a great example of kind of how I ended up starting a wood shop for women and gender nonconforming folks. So this is like a very typical photo of me with my colleagues, right? Martin Perrier is on the left there, and then everyone else is like is a white man, and they're all fantastic makers and all wonderful people. But I wanted to create a space with other people to encourage more diversity. And so we started a workshop of our own here in Baltimore. This is a safety class we had that had a lot of people in it. We got photos, wrote about it in American Crafts magazine. We've done things where we've taught. This is at a American Craft Council show in Baltimore where we do on-site teaching, like really rapid with people, community events in the park. This was our first joinery class. Shalon, I don't remember her name off the top of my head. And just more, this is volunteers building up the shop. This is an image of this shop before we occupied it. The first tool in the shop. A cutting board class. One of my students in the intro to furniture making class worked on her side table. Our first bowl members, she'd never worked with wood before, and we went to the lumberyard together and she made these shelves. We also have events where we try to just sort of help with, just talk about what's going on in the world. It's an example of that. We've made objects to put into, anyway, we make things on commission. This is a piece we made for the Making a Seat at the Table exhibition at the Center for Art and Wood. We made the table in this picture. And then this is the last photo. So a workshop of our own is a 6,400 square foot educational wood shop here in Baltimore for women and gender nonconforming folks. This is the last photo. This is the photo of the last time we were together in a space. This is March 13th, 2020. We just renovated the shop and we hope to reopen soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was great. And then next up, we've got Jess.
Hi, y'all. My name is Jess Hirsch. I use she or they pronouns, and I am a mid-30s person with blonde hair up in a top knot, wearing a checkered print dress. You can't see the full thing. And sitting in my office with a painting behind me and some French doors also behind me. I am a social practice artist, and I actually am going to share some images of my work because everyone else has been.
Awesome.
Really nice. So yeah, let me talk a little bit about my personal work, and then I mostly want to talk you through the space I created, which was originally called Women's Woodshop and is now named Fireweed Community Woodshop, based in Minneapolis, but mostly on the internet these days. But a little bit about my social practice work. What you're looking at is a table that I made with ash elm from Wood from the Hood. which is a local lumber yard that takes trees that are having to be cut down by the city. And this Dutch elm had to be cut because it was dying. And so this project is called Landscape, and it looks at how the seasons help us learn about loss, from death to small losses in our lives. And I used, natural materials and actually different wood species that treat different emotional states. So working with elm and ash, both of those woods come from the energetic medicine world and treat depression. So I want my work is very layered, and I like to have lots of little nuggets of information, and all of the material choices are very specific. And on the video screen, or there's an image being projected behind, and I took footage around Minnesota during the seasons to document these changes and how they can be teachers for us. And I also wrote sort of a guided poem to go along with it, and it was translated into Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. And there were 4 video channels, but they are not shown. I also wove all the seats of the stools with hand-dyed shaker tape from natural plants that treat different emotional states as well. And then the public was invited to come and drink teas from different native plants as well, and have conversations about how they deal with loss together. And it sat 8 people. And that was the last show I had in person, January of last year. Or not last year, 2 years ago. Wow. Prior to that, I was invited to Moscow, Russia to stage a project I've done in the past called the Energetic Flower Stand. And what it is folks walk into this pseudo flower shop, and they're led in a guided meditation to get grounded in their body. So what you're looking at here are people meditating, and the person at the far left is actually leading the guided meditation. I had sort of helpers helping folks through this process. So they did a body scan and then got to a state of very intuitive thinking. And then they went around and selected 3 flowers out of 12 that treat different emotional states. Then there was a map where they could see what the flowers meant to them and kind of discover something about themselves. And on the map, there was a walking path that they could go on outside of the museum. This was at the Garage Museum. So there were kind of combined 3 paths for folks to experience the flowers. And the goal was for them to be around the flowers, sort of absorbing the energy of the flowers by proximity, and also have a 10 to 15 minute walk to reflect on these emotional states that maybe they weren't confronting. It was also, I think this show was January, the other show was February, and this it was very dark and gray and gnarly in Moscow. So it was great that people were walking around with these very bright flowers, kind of having this like joyous experience. Yeah, and the museum also built everything for me, and that was really weird. And I couldn't even touch it. The like museum staff had to touch it, and I had to tell them where to put things. It was not the way I like to work. I like to touch everything. This piece is called Prescription Gardens. It was a part of the Artists on the Verge Fellowship a couple of years ago. And I created 3 different gardens that were around the city of Minneapolis. And what you're looking at is the Feeling Tone Garden, which is kind of the foundational garden where people could call a telephone hotline and figure out what they were truly feeling at the moment, and then move out to other gardens. I cast all these concrete benches and made this little newsstand in the back. And then I also learned how to code and programmed through Twilio a telephone hotline where you could choose different options and plants. Yeah. very layered project. This is a piece at Franconia Sculpture Park. It's called Deathbed. It's actually 3-tiered stack of pinch toe coffins. So the base coffin is 21 feet and then it gets smaller until it's a human-sized coffin on the top. On the second level of the coffins, there are plants that treat different emotional states that deal with grief and fear and feelings around death. And the very top is a cast slab of concrete with crystals embedded in it. And people were invited to come and lay on top of the concrete. It's exactly 6 feet above the ground too. So you can imagine when we pass, we go 6 feet under, and I was trying to get us to a place where we can start to question and think about death in the current living state. And it's really great having it at Franconia because there's just fields of flowers all surrounding it, and wonderful sculptures as well. And that's still up. So if you're in Schaefer, Minnesota, please check it out. And I think that is it for myself. Yes. Okay. So it's now back on me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm
There we
good
go,
at that.
Jess.
Yeah. So I just want to talk a little bit about Fireweed. Fireweed is a community wood shop. We offer all gender or no gender classes, but typically we offer classes just for women and non-binary folks. The main difference is we try to elevate women and non-binary folks into leadership roles so that they are teaching the classes. Right now, all of our classes are online, and we'll try to be offering 4 a month come September. Right now, we're kind of on pause. We're forming our nonprofit status, but there'll definitely be more classes soon. And what else did I want to say about it? We have lots of ways to like volunteer, but there's actually a group of us at the Walker right now making small sculptures with Mina, who runs our BIPOC only Power Tools 101 class. So there's lots going on there, but I think this evening we'll be talking a lot about inclusive spaces. So I will just leave it at that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. And I should say this for everybody. If you have a link to Fireweed or any of your organizations and you want to put them in the chat, feel free, go right ahead. And then last but not least, we have Dennis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dennis Walsh. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm a 30-year-old white man with glasses. I'm wearing like a blue chambray button-up. And I'm just in a bedroom in my house with some closet doors and the entryway behind me. So, and I am the program director at Urban Boat Builders in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so we recently rebranded. We got a new logo. So this is our beautiful new logo. And so our mission at Urban Boat Builders is we build boats, but we're a youth development organization. And so we both work at schools and in our own wood shop in St. Paul, building boats with middle and high school youth. We have 2 different programs. Our partnership program is where we go off to schools and other community organizations and groups, and we bring all the tools and materials to build typically a boat, but we also started a longboard skateboard making program a couple of years ago. The picture you see here is actually a collaboration with us and Juxtaposition Arts in North Minneapolis, and they were working on a project related to the
I wonder if we lost Dennis. Is he frozen for everybody else? Yeah. Okay. How about Pearl, if you would mind just reaching out to Dennis directly and see if you're able to troubleshoot with him. Oh, wait, he's back. I saw him
Am I
move.
there? Okay.
Now
cool.
you're there. Okay.
Okay, great, perfect.
Shoot, I think, Dennis, you may have frozen once again. Oh, it's probably an internet connection thing, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that.
Yes, it probably is.
There it is. Okay.
So I'll see if I can keep cycling so that you can see some more about urban boat builders and be quick.
Okay.
So we do our partnership program where we work with lots of youth all around the Twin Cities metro area. We also have an apprenticeship program where we hire high school youth in different cohorts to build boats and build up their own employment history and skills. And since we're building canoes, we also want to connect our youth to waterways and to natural places. So
We were so close. That was a good chunk, though. I feel
Yeah.
like we learned a lot about. Oh, good. I see you moving. Do you want to say anything else, Dennis?
yeah, in COVID, we pivoted our apprenticeship program and partnership programs. Group building isn't conducive during COVID, so we moved to individual. So they made our apprentices made laminated paddles, and we did little folding stool remote builds with our partnership program.
Awesome.
Yeah, and if you're around, we're always looking for volunteers. If you need a boat, let us know. We have youth that build great boats, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Yeah.
That's great. And feel free, if you want to put a link to the Urban Boat Builders website in there, feel free. Well, wonderful. That was such a great, I'm inspired by all of these introductions and what everybody's up to. This is so fantastic. So for our audience, we have a couple prepared questions, and I'm just going to go through those. And panelists, if you feel moved, just jump in. You know, I won't call on you individually. So our first question is, what do you think is the future of art spaces, and what do you think is needed within them? Any thoughts?
I've sort of been thinking about this all day and trying to like think about what is the real future and what is my ideal future. So I'm just going to talk about the ideal. And I think that the ideal future for me anyways, is more radical spaces that are non-hierarchical. Oh God, it's always hard, but like, and more cooperative, working outside of the realms of capitalism. So more skill shares and exchanges, so that equality is available to everyone. I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in a lot of art spaces, especially in the woodworking world, which is why it's so important that we have a workshop of our own and spaces like Fireweed. I think there needs to be more of that, especially sharing our spaces and resources with the BIPOC community too. And that's something that we're doing at Fireweed, having like reparations, micro reparations. You can never do what needs to be done, but micro reparations pricing and BIPOC only classes. The workshop in Minneapolis is a clay based shared space, and they have BIPOC only classes that are free. So definitely spaces like that, I think it's starting to turn around, but I think like spaces that don't have gatekeepers, crazy applications, spaces that ask you to intern for X amount of months and not get paid, all of these things, just like more supportive spaces. That's my ideal art world, art
Nice.
space world. So the dreams. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know.
I'm
Small
glad you
talk.
led with the dreams though. Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
I've also sort of been thinking kind of on that same lines of dreams of like, well, what defines an art space? And can anything be an art space? And how can we use this idea of like inclusive art communities to reach people who aren't artists? And I think one of the reasons I'm thinking so much about this is because I'm at this large, I'm at UW Madison. I'm at it's a large research university. And so a lot of the students that I encounter here, the students of my own are, and the students that I TA, they're not art students, right? They're scientists and researchers, and they're going to be doctors and lawyers and et cetera, and they're taking an art class for fun. And I keep thinking, what can I teach you that you can bring back into your own field? And how do I make sure that something that I want to teach you is relevant for what you want to learn in your life and their world? And they have a lot of sort of interdisciplinary like art plus science programs here. And so that's just really made me think a lot about and even what defines a space and what defines community, and how can we expand all of those and just use the toolbox of an art space or an art community to reach, scientists and doctors and lawyers.
Nice.
Yeah, I would just add on like that. All of this resonates a lot, and I think what we've learned at WU is that, so WU is what we call a workshop of our own. When I first started it, I thought, oh, this will be a space where maybe I could get like 3 or 4 other women together to like share a space to make furniture, to share those costs, and then we would have some classes in addition to sort of like introduce people, but also like help with that like community overhead. And it's really transformed into absolutely not that at all. So we don't have studio space rental anymore. We're looking towards developing some sort of residency program. But what we've really noticed is that we have attracted all of these people that don't consider themselves artists, who don't consider themselves craftspeople, who don't consider themselves woodworkers, coming to the space because they read about it or heard about it on the radio or wherever, and saying to us like they never would have considered doing the thing that they're there to do had they not heard that what our space was about, and the fact that learning about the sort of the social aspect of our space all of a sudden tore down some barriers that they didn't really realize that they had up already. And I think that that ties into with what Jess said of like just reducing these barriers to entry and opening things up in ways that stops being so elite, whether that's elite or just exclusionary in whatever way it is.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really like, we work with youth, and we're actually about teaching them about how to work at a job, but like we make beautiful things. And so, and they make beautiful things. And I think one of the things, like Sarah was saying, that really helps them move forward and all that is the openness, and the like it's not just an art space, it's a learning space. And that being like, rather than an expectation of we're going to create this amazing thing, and like we're going to learn how to do this and we're going to trust ourselves. We teach them to use the tools, but we also teach them to trust their eyes and ask them and try to get them to direct the boat a little bit more than an instructor, more of a coaching model than a direct instruction model, and just like opening those spaces to allow for learning and failure and features and just all those things, to not even just lower the social barrier, but the like, I don't know, like as a young person, I was like anxious around art classes because I had this expectation for myself to create something amazing, and that always inhibited me. So just like that openness to learning as well, and as Jess said, like communal spaces, spaces where people can come in and learn and work with each other, and just be exposed to different approaches and mediums and things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Sarah. So that brings us to our next question, which is, how do we reach broader audiences with access to tools and outlets for building? I wonder if people have thought about this one.
Well, I would say that I think one of the obvious answers that you might hear often is simply like, to actually actively reach out to the people that you don't see, or in your space. You can think of it as a very human thing. If I saw a space that had no one that looked like me there, why would I go like, oh, that looks like a great space for me to be? That's just like, anyway, without going too much into that idea, but like just being active in reaching out to people. We get a lot of men woodworkers saying they want to hire women, they would totally hire women, but no applies, and so applies, therefore women aren't interested in this. And so there's a disconnect there, right? Like, you're not reaching out to the community that you're hoping to have apply. So that's one thing. And I think then also to broaden, Jess mentioned leadership roles, bringing people into leadership roles that are not represented traditionally, or traditionally excluded, that sort of thing.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else have other thoughts? Okay, I won't. Oh, no, I see Jess. I saw you, Jess. Okay.
Well, this actually kind of correlates to Tom's question in the chat. I think that Zoom has been amazing to broaden the reach. It has been so cool. Yeah.
Do you mind, Jess, if I interject and read it in case people are listening?
Yeah. Oh, please do. Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Tom. It reads, what would you say to the idea that although the pandemic-induced Zoom era has generally sucked, is it possible that a silver lining is that people have been forced to work in unusual ways in their living room or with less access to fancy shops, and that opens up new options and thinking about what kind of situations can function as productive places to produce creative work? Do you have specific stories that speak to that? So keep going, Jess.
Yeah. We really jumped in on the Zoom classes as soon as, and we lost our physical space. So this was the only way to really get into it. But we send out kits to people. So we try and think through, okay, if someone's going to do this veneer kit or this veneer earring project at home, what would they need if they have absolutely zero tools? And then we send absolutely everything you could possibly need to that person, so that they don't have to think through like, we had a decorative carving class with Rita Vincent, who's an amazing, she does like 17th century decorative carving. And we made these little tabletop protectors and sent those out, and with clamps, so they could like clamp to whatever desk they had. And they were adjustable, and all you needed was the mallet, which was also sent in the kit. So I think it really showed that you can do this type of work in different spaces. It's limited, obviously. We're working with a lot of hand tools. One of my favorite things that I've learned is that it really cuts down the hindrance of childcare, because people can be at home. If they're having like a little emergency, they can go deal with that and come back to class and watch the recording. And it makes it interesting. I always like to tell this story of teaching a spoon carving class, and seeing this mom just carving, like she's totally in the zone. And then I see this little child's hand with a knife start moving in and out of my computer screen. And I was like, hey, I think your kiddo grabbed your other knife, just a heads up. And they were like, oh, okay. And it was chill, but very interesting to see the different spaces. But I think for accessibility, it's been huge to get people going on woodworking.
Amazing. It's a great anecdote. Anyone else have Zoom? Yeah, I see Teresa.
Yeah, I love this question, Tom. I agree, and you know, it's so hard to even talk about any positives because it's been so much this past few years. But yeah, I do think there's been some positives in that we've sort of learned to adapt. We've learned how to figure out, okay, I don't have access to a shop. I don't have this. This doesn't feel safe. And I also have had, well, I'll say privilege. I've had the privilege of teaching in person since September because UW we had at least a sculpture class I was assisting, you know, starting in September, masks on, there we were. And that felt really scary at first. But I noticed one thing I've noticed in, you know, almost a year of doing that is the conversation of consent is a lot more people are asking, hey, can I get close to you? Are you comfortable with me stepping in your personal space? So I don't know if that will stick around, but I do think, and it was, you know, all of these things where, oh, okay, we have to figure out how to spread people out. We have to figure out how do you do a table saw demo while wearing a mask, while keeping people 6 feet apart. So it was like a lot of learning, but I think it ended up being more one-on-one, more like slowing down and really thinking about what we're doing, which I think is going to be really beneficial to the future. Like, how do we keep that going?
Thank you.
And I would say from a Woo perspective, a lot of the same stuff. Additionally, you know, we chose Baltimore to start the project because, well, we definitely wanted to have it in a city. I love craft schools in pastoral locations that are just like amazing retreats to go to. But that's not always easy for people to get to, and they can be expensive. That said, a lot of schools do amazing scholarship programs. But it was really important to us to be in a city and to sort of be like visible in the city as well. Like that, like hopefully we get to teach our students and do great things with our students and with whoever comes in, but also people walking by might learn a little bit about and maybe change their perception of what a woodworker is. And so with the pandemic, when we started doing our online classes, we found we were able to reach some of these rural folks that can't get to Baltimore. You know, we've had students from all over the world, but we've also just had like repeat students from like rural Arkansas or Homer, Alaska, and being able to provide that to people that don't have a community shop in their area is really great.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in really quick and say, like, we also went to Zoom classes as soon as we feasibly possible to continue to partner with groups. We continued to run our apprenticeship in our shop as much spread out and all that as possible, but like partnering with schools was a whole different thing to grapple with. And we were trying to figure out, like, how do we send kits out and also like make it a little bit more than just like IKEA assembly, so that there's more learning and feeling of accomplishment than just like putting screws in holes that are already drilled, which was a challenge for us, but we seem to have found a good spot, and we added in some like painting and visual design education that we haven't ever really explicitly included before, to add more personalization to it. And we had some students just create some beautiful paintings and things on these stools, and paint is just not something we typically work with. So we expanded that. And then because of the limitations on tools and the simplicity, while there was still some tool use and building involved, has actually allowed us to expand to some younger audiences than we've served before. And we did some combination where we would have like a day of instruction on Zoom, and then a day where an instructor would just be available for like office hours. And we had kids who would just like come and hang out on Zoom with our instructors and just, you know, like they would have their cameras off, but they would just like be creating that community with that instructor. And that was really important for them. And I think it just like hammered home for us, like how important our engagement is with our youth. And also how important it is and affirming it can be for a young person to like learn to build and make early, and that will like, they'll always have that thing as long as they keep it. But they'll always have that experience, and how that can just be a really powerful thing for them.
Nice. I'm going to ask one more question here, but also a reminder for our audience members. If you have any questions, feel free, because we're headed up in the last 10 minutes here. So if I see something in the chat, I will shout it out. So I want to ask, what are your dreams for using this medium to reach a broader audience? And I know, Jess, you touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering if anybody else has other dream aspirations they'd love to share.
I have a dream that I've just been thinking about, is that I wish they would bring wood shops back into high schools. I feel like I maybe want to like teach a high school wood shop, or yeah, youth programs in general. You know, I think just as society and technology advances, like less and less people just know how to fix stuff and build stuff. And my dream is that reverses, and you know, every 10-year-old knows how to use a set of tools.
I love that idea. My first woodworking experience was in 7th grade. So I love that. That pulls at my heartstrings. Sarah, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I agree about the younger, you know, high school kids. It's kind of, you know, if you look at like really, really expensive private schools, many of them do have wood shops. It's like, it would be really great to get, that would definitely be a dream to get this sort of thing into public schools. And I think that woodworking and furniture making, which is my focus, I think that, you know, it really does something for your brain. And I think that as a child, that's really good. I think as an adult too, like we've never done it before. The number of grown-ups that I've taught how to read a ruler is surprising to myself. And I think that learning how to problem solve while building something makes people better people. I don't know if that's true, but it's my belief that learning how to take something and make a 3D object and deal with the mistakes and deal with like designing and then building and problem solving and all of that, I think makes people more thoughtful in general. I think it connects the hemispheres of your brain the way that music does, or playing music does. I think that it's just really good for humanity. So the more people that could be doing this sort of thing, even a little bit, I think is good. And as far as our space, we would really like to get to a point where we're moving into providing apprenticeship opportunities, which it's a long way off, but that's something that I didn't get in my career. You know, I tried to get an apprenticeship when I lived in New York, and I could not get people to respond to my emails, you know.
Nice. That sounds great. Anyone else want to share a dream? And that's okay if not. I also see this question from Julia Rose in the chat asking, is everyone planning to continue both learning streams, Zoom and in person? And yes, to Teresa's desire to return to woodshop, yes.
Yeah, we're definitely going to keep Zoom classes going and then move into some in-person classes as soon as we're looking for a new space in September. But we've been partnering with St. Paul Public Parks to do BIPOC only spoon carving classes that are a reduced cost. So keep an eye out for that. And we've also partnered with Leonardo's Basement, which is a kids camp, and they allow us to rent space by the hour. They have a little wood shop. So we definitely want to get power tools back into our repertoire, but we'll have, I know that we're going to have a bamboo basket weaving class with Lu Zhu, who is actually based in China. So she'll be Zooming in. And then our Brazilian veneer earring teacher will be back, Shayla. Weve Vincent will be teaching again this fall. So we have lots of really great classes coming up. That's my shameless plug.
Plugs are welcome. Okay.
Yeah, we'll also continue to offer remote learning opportunities for youth if that's something that schools continue to be interested in. We've already had some schools and organizations say like, yeah, we actually really like the stool program, but we'd love to do it in person. And so then adapting it to be in person again as well. But like now we have that in our back pocket a little bit, which just allows us to reach a broader audience and to be able to adapt to people's needs. Which is really exciting. It was really stressful at first, but like just that breaking into a virtual space is a really exciting opportunity for us. So
Yeah, same with what we are looking to. We definitely intend to continue virtual programming. You know, our main goal, in addition to like providing people with access to these classes via Zoom and to stay connected with our community, but our sort of larger sort of strategic planning goal with doing virtual programming was to get to a place where we could be resilient if something else happened. If there's another pandemic, if climate change starts really doing horrible, like whatever comes, that we have these like other modes of interacting with folks, and we are very excited to continue doing that. We have lots of classes coming up if you want to check those out, and then we hope to reopen in person in September as well, actually.
Nice.
I'll just jump in with one shameless plug for myself too. Teaching in Zoom has given me the opportunity to teach in places that I'm physically not. So in next month, I'm teaching at Pocosin Arts, which is in Oregon, I think. Anybody know, Sarah? I don't even know where it is physically located, but we're teaching online, you know? So it's kind of nice to have the option to do both.
That's fantastic. And I don't know if Sarah and Teresa, do you want to put links to what you're up to in the chat just to share that? Awesome. Cool. Well, we have 2 minutes left. Is there anything that our panelists would like to say in closing, or anything you didn't get to mention that you'd like to put out into the world?
Just two things really quick. One is in terms of getting woodshop back in schools, like that's something that's one of the things we serve is schools, so that if they don't have a program, we get to be in it. But one thing I've learned as we work in schools is that, at least in Minnesota, there is a provision for community experts to teach, even if they aren't licensed as teachers. So if you're in Minnesota and you know a school that is like, might have a space to build in, just like, I don't know, try approaching them and saying like, hey, I could do this. And often it's cheaper for them to pay a community expert than it is a teacher. So find your ways into some schools. And then the second thing is a plug for, we are looking for a second apprenticeship coordinator to join our staff. And so I'll post the link to the job description in the chat, but we have a job opening right now and we're looking for some wonderful people to apply. So love to see some great makers of all kinds to show up in our inbox. So
fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Dennis. That's great. Anyone else before we close out? No? Okay, well, I would want to just say thank you to everybody, especially to our panelists. We couldn't have done this without them. And for everybody who was here tonight, keep an eye on your inbox. We will be sending out links to the recordings from this conference sometime next week. So keep an eye on your inbox. So have a beautiful evening, everyone. Good night. Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes.